now that it's somewhat official, let's talk about Vic Fangio's defense. What is up, Finn fans? Yes, we are going to talk about Vic Fangio's defense. I'm going to kind of tell you what it looks like, what they're going to do, all these things. First, before we jump into that, the Dolphins did release Matt Applebaum, the offensive line coach. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the offensive line and how it was better, but it still wasn't good enough, and go into the offensive line and the problems with it and why it's always been a problem and why we have 10 offensive linemen coaches in the past 9 years and a bunch of stuff. I have video planned for that in its own. Maybe tomorrow I'll put it out. But I just want to let you know that he was released. We did interview Dan Rouser from the Saints. We will be interviewing offensive line coaches. I was a big fan of Matt Applebaum. What he did with the Boston College offensive line was the reason I was a big fan of his. But again, the Dolphins offensive line, if you look at some of the rankings, it was better than 32nd, but it wasn't where it should have been with the addition of Armstead, with Hunt, and with the addition of Connor Williams. But again, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to make it its own video because we're going to be talking about Vic Fangio's defense and kind of what we can expect and what his defense looks like. So without further, as I like to say, ado, we're going to jump into this and kind of look at what his defense kind of looks like, right? So he runs, a lot of people are like, are we going to go to 4-3 or are we going to go to 3-4? You know, we've been running this hybrid defense for, 3 years now? You know, Flores came in, kind of brought in that hybrid defense. I think we were running a 4-3 beforehand. So a lot of people want to know, are we going to go to a 4-3 or 3-4? And for people who don't know what that means, a 4-3 is 4 down defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and a 3-4 is 3 down defensive linemen and 4 linebackers. Normally in a 4-3 set, you have 2 defensive tackles. They're more athletic defensive tackles. So like if we did run a 4-3 set, you'd probably have Jalen Phillips with his hand down full time. You'd have Christian Wilkins, you'd have Sealer, and then maybe Bradley Chubb with his hand down full time. Those are your 4 defensive linemen, and then you have your 3 linebackers. Whereas in a 3-4 set, which we kind of ran a little bit, you got your outside linebackers, which were Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. You got your big boy in the middle, right? Your defensive tackle is your nose tackle, and that's where the NT nose tackle comes from. That's like a Christian Wilkins type. You know, that's the big boy. That's the guy who's going to take up 2 blocks. And then you had your outside defensive end-ish type players in this 3-4 set, which was like Emmanuel Ogbah, Christian Wilkins, Sealer. You know, they would rotate in those positions. So just to give you a quick idea of what the difference is between a 3-4 and a 4-3. So he runs it's another situation where it's a hybrid of both, right? He does run a 2 shell, a 2 high safety, 2 safety shell look. And in this type of defense, the safeties are very important. They have to be athletic, right? Because in this defense, they are going to kind of play, normally you have your linebackers that are going to kind of cover the center of the field, and you have your safeties, especially in a two high safety set. They're going to be up high, right? In Vic Fangio's defense, they're kind of mid, because he asks his safeties to, if it's a run, to hit the hole and to make a break on the run. But if it's a pass, to not let anything beat you over the top. So you need those athletic safeties that are going to be able to go back and forth and do what they need to do. Drop back, close the gap, all that stuff. In this defense, he doesn't blitz. He doesn't blitz a lot. And I looked it up. And it sucks because I couldn't really find, you can look up like blitz percentage and all that stuff. And I couldn't really find his earlier years blitz percentage, but the last defense I found, which was 2018 Chicago Bears, which was, I think, the number 1 defense in the NFL at the time, he blitzed 20.3% of the time, which was ranked 23rd in the NFL. He doesn't blitz too much. He does blitz. I'm not going to say he doesn't blitz, but he doesn't blitz too much. Now we're going to kind of talk about the up front. So now we're going to kind of talk about up front a little bit, and then I'll rotate speaking of rotate, because he does rotate his coverage a lot, I'll talk about the back end and the coverage a little bit. So up front, he tailor fits to the personnel, right? So he's going to look at who we have in Phillips, in Chubb, who he's familiar with, Sealer, Davis, Wilkins. If we bring back guys, again, this is another video, but I don't think, Ingram's going to come back, but he's going to look at them and see where they fit, what they do, all that stuff. He likes to, run a tight front, and he also likes to disguise his coverages a lot, especially in the front. He will make it look like that you can run on this defense, right? He's going to have his safeties kind of play midfield. He's going to kind of have his defensive line, and then the linebackers sometimes might be on the outside. And then as a quarterback or as an offensive coordinator, you think, I can run it right up the middle. But he expects his defensive line to be able to stop that, which, maybe that's one of the reasons he picked Miami, because we were able to. So this look where, it looks favorable, it helps the defense to not allow explosive plays down the field, and also forces your front to stop the run. And again, we were fourth or sixth in the NFL in stopping the run last year. So again, maybe that's another reason why he came in and wanted to take on the Miami Dolphins defense. With his front, he gives you different looks and kind of messes with your head a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize myself. We're going to look at this is Photoshop, but I'm going to be able to show you kind of like what the fronts are going to look like. So normally in a 3-4 set, you'll have, your two down linebacker, defensive lineman, and your outside guys, right? To give you an idea, that is what you'll see in a 3-4 set, which is very confusing because I didn't write D-line or linebackers. So there's your D lineman here. And then here are your outside linebackers. In his defense, he's going to mess with your head, right? So you're going to see this, but you're actually going to see this, right? And when you see this, normally, this is a 3-4 set. You have your 4 down defensive linemen, you get your 3 linebackers. But what this is this is a defensive lineman, a defensive lineman, and a defensive lineman. And then this is over here, this is your outside linebacker. And then here's your linebackers. It's shifted. It's kind of, a 3-4 over, I think it's called. So it's shifted. So he's going to give you a look on defense that, the quarterback is going to look and he's, they're in a 3-4. They're expecting this, or that. But with this shift over here, he sometimes can drop back into coverage and kind of, leave one-on-ones on this side. And then all of a sudden really have the defense, send pressure on the quarterback's right side and have these guys drop back. He likes to run this coverage. And then sometimes it might be the other way. You might have the 3 defensive linemen over here, your 3 defensive linemen, and then you have your outside linebacker over here. So it's shifted this way. This is a look that he gives a lot to kind of mess with the opposing quarterback, which, man does a lot. To the coverage, with this too high safety look, or the 2 shell safety look, as they like to call it, he gives you a very vanilla look. He gives you a look that you're going to see it and you're going to be like, okay, they're running a cover 2, this, and that. And he needs his safeties to be athletic enough and interchangeable enough. So again, safety might be a big addition when it comes to free agency, which I will talk about. Because they need to be athletic enough, like I said before, to be able to run up and stop the run, but also run back and get into coverage, but also to shift, to go over, and there'll be plays where you'll see the 2 high safety, and then that right corner will blitz. And in the same process of that corner blitzing, the whole defense shifts. So that safety, so again, if you're the quarterback, that safety to your left is going to come down, and he's going to cover your wide receiver to your right as that blitzing corner comes. But you're not going to think that he's blitzing So when you snap the ball and you see that corner blitzing, you're going to try to throw it to that wide receiver, and that safety coming down to cover that route is going to jump it. I saw it with Jackson with the Chicago Bears. I think he had like 2 or 3 pick sixes in a season because of that shift in the secondary. It's like a cyclone kind of. It's a huge rotation when it comes to that. So again, he gives you very vanilla based defenses, but then he'll shift it and he'll throw something different at you at the snap, which really messes with the opposing quarterback's head. So if you're not a very intelligent, well, I'm not saying intelligent, but if you're not very good at pre-snap reads, this new defense is going to absolutely mess with your head. So now I'm going to kind of talk about the zone defense and the man defense. And his zone defense is different. It's not a traditional zone defense, because in a zone defense, you have your different zones. So in like a cover 2, you have your 2 high safeties, and then you'll have your 2 corners kind of covering the sidelines, and then you got your linebackers covering the center of the field. So you got all these zones. And a lot of times when you're a corner or you're a linebacker, a guy will come in your zone, you'll keep in contact with him, and then you'll kind of push him off to the next zone. Whereas in Fangio's defense, it's more a zone and a man, if that makes any sense to you. So when someone enters your zone, you instantly start to play man. Because if you notice, a lot of times the zones, when someone comes into your zone, you will let them do what they need to do. You keep your eye on the quarterback and you keep your eye on the receiver. You're not playing as tight. Whereas in Fangio's zone defense, when the receiver comes in, you're going to follow him. You're going to keep a hand on him. You're going to play man until he gets out of your zone, and then again. So it's like a man zone type of defense, and the whole time you're keeping your eye on the quarterback. With this type of defense and with this type of coverage, communication is incredibly important. The corners, the linebackers, the safeties have to constantly be in communication. And that's a lot of times what our biggest problem was, and sometimes in blown coverage, because there's no communication. You know, if they're stacked, if you have a receiver stacked, you have to let the guy know, I'm taking the guy in the back, I'm taking the guy in the front, or I'm going to take the outside, you take the inside. So when those stacked receivers run their routes, you know, as a corner, I'm going to take the outside. So the route that goes towards the sideline, I'm going to follow him. You're going to take the inside. Because if you're not saying that to yourself, and all of a sudden they run their routes, you're going to run into each other. All of a sudden, blown coverage, especially with motions and all this stuff. There's huge amount of communication that needs to be done, not only in the zone, but I'm going to also talk about the man. So then when it comes to man coverage, his defense, the man, you stick with your guy, but to a certain extent, right? So you'll have your man until a certain area of the field. And a lot of times, and I'm noticing that this defense will give you underneath stuff. So you'll have to, really play tight. You'll have to run up and make the tackle, which I noticed that the Dolphins defense was really good at doing, especially like Kader Kohu, who's very good at open field tackling. So with this type of man defense, you get tighter coverage on the deep and intermediates. You get man coverage on different levels, and you get rub routes. It can be harder to run, but the downside is the timing is very important. And then if the offense can pick up on this, mismatches can be created. So when it comes to the zone, right, like I said, it's a zone defense, but once you come in to that zone and you play a man and then you pass them off, again, communication's important. And it can concede to underthrows, but again, if we're playing that tight, fast, get after him defense, I'm fine with that. The pros are tighter coverage in the zone, and you keep your eye on the quarterback, and leads to interceptions. Like I said, his last year being a defensive coordinator, Fangio, 27 interceptions, 7 from Fuller, 6 from Jackson, and 3 from Prince Amukamara in 2018. He was number 1 defense in turnovers. So his style of defense will cause turnovers. In 2011, number 1 in turnovers, 2012, 14th, 2013, 6th in turnovers, 2014, 4th in turnovers, 2017, 13th. So he's getting turnovers. He's getting turnovers on you. And again, the man coverage, tighter coverage on intermediate to deep passes, like I said, different levels of man coverage. You got to practice on the timing. And again, if the offense can pick up on those certain things, they can cause mismatches. So all in all, right, this defense is going to mess with opposing quarterbacks' heads. from their 4-3 looking 3-4 sets, from the 2 safety shell, from the rotation of the secondary on certain blitzes, and again, like I said, he doesn't blitz a lot, but he will blitz, from the look of, oh, we can run on this defense because they have, less in the box versus, and, he forces his guys to take a 2-gap set versus a 1-gap set, which, normally, you just take your gap, whether it's the A, the B, or whatever gap, that's your gap. Whereas in this defensive line, you are responsible for 2 gaps. You got to take the A and the B. If he's going to hit the A gap, you got to get over to the A gap. If he's going to take the B gap, you got to get over to the B gap. So there's that. This defense I've noticed is a lot of, I'm going to mess with your head. You're going to think you have one thing, but you have another thing. Also, this defense really needs smart, athletic players. And I think this defense has smart, athletic players. There are pieces that are going to be needed to be added, potentially pieces that are going to be replaced. Now, like I said, safety right now, I could see, there's a rotation that he has at safety. So I can, right now we have Javon Holland and Brandon Jones, Fedulum and Eric Rowe are free agents. I can see them adding another safety. Poyer, I've heard rumors that he wants to come here. That'd be fantastic. Bring in that vet, that guy that, you don't really need to teach too much. He could probably go with the flow. We need cornerback health and help. Linebackers. Jerome Baker, we can save a ton of money by moving on from him. But again, he's that athletic linebacker that might fit really well into this defense. So I'm very excited to see what this defense can do. I'm very excited to see how all this pans out. And I'm very happy that the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel were very aggressive about getting Vic Fangio. It makes me happy and understand what Mike McDaniel's doing, because I talked about this, I think, in yesterday's video, where you look at Bill Parcells. He was a big defensive guy, and he went out and got himself a very important, very good offensive coordinator so he doesn't have to worry about that side of the ball. And it seems like that's what Mike McDaniel's doing. Because if you remember, I think it was the Bills game or the Ravens game. It was a game in the beginning of the season where Mike McDaniel said, fix that blank. Because he's noticing that his offense was putting up points. Look at the Browns game, the Bears game, and the Lions game. The offense was putting up points, and then the defense was allowing point after point after point. Even the Ravens game, the defense was just a floodgate. Now, by bringing in Vic Fangio, he doesn't have to worry about that side. He's got a guy who's been a head coach. He's got a guy who's ran multiple defenses, top 10 defenses. You don't got to worry. And now Vic Fangio and him have this relationship where, if he wasn't told to take Boyer on and the defense from last year, he was going to bring Vic Fangio in last year. They do have a relationship. They do have a respect and understanding of each other. That Fangio, who used to be head coach, can help McDaniel in certain situations. Don't call a timeout here. Don't challenge that. Listen, you need to correct. There's that addition as well. So again, I'm very excited. Hope you guys understand the defense. I tried to explain it as best I could. So I hope my crude drawings and all that stuff kind of helped you guys understand what we're going to be running. But it will be another hybrid type defense. From what I'm hearing and from what I'm seeing he runs, it's not just a straight 4-3-3-4. It's going to be another type of hybrid type defense, maybe leaning more towards 3-4. But again, he predicates it on the personnel up front and how it fits. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And hopefully, I think him coming in, because you look at Chicago, his first 2 years, the defense wasn't great. And then his last 2 years, it really took off. I don't think there's going to be that hiccup there. I think we have the talent, especially up front, that as soon as he comes in, we can get pressure and get after him. But the secondary might need some help. Richards, can he come in and help? Desai, can he come in and help? We'll see who he wants to bring in on his defensive staff. I'm pretty sure Mike McDaniel's going to be like, hire whoever you want. But I will make a video tomorrow talking about Applebaum, talking about the offensive line, the problems there, all that stuff. But I hope you enjoyed it. We are halfway. I think we're at 4,500. 39,500 subscribers. We're almost at 40,000. So if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. If you're new, hit the thumbs up. Lets me know you enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys in the next one talking about the offensive line. But like usual, stay classy. Fins up.